Hello and welcome to White Centipede Noise Podcast, where we give language to noise. I'm Oscar Brummel, and today my guest is GX Jupiter-Larsen of the Haters, a true legend of noise in a league of his own. Formed in 1979, the Haters have used noise as the logical basis for a rich and fantastic alternate universe of entropy. GX currently resides in Los Angeles, where he continues to work in sound, performance, video, writing, and virtually all other artistic mediums. Links to GX's Bandcamp, social media, and current projects can be found in the description of this episode. In honor of the holiday season and out of respect for GX's pioneering work, I decided to make the full version of this episode available to the public. So thank you to all of our current Patreon supporters for making this project possible. If you appreciate White Centipede Noise Podcast, please consider supporting it today at patreon.com/White Centipede Noise. White Centipede Noise is sponsored by Rural Isolation Project. Visit ruralisolationproject.com, ruralisolationproject.bandcamp.com, or look out for them at a distro near you. Hello, GX. Welcome to White Centipede Noise Podcast.
It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Well, the honor is all mine.
Before I say too much and overdo it, it's, you are a true legend of noise. And I was right before we started, I was thinking, could be one of the longest running noise projects in existence. I mean, you just celebrated 45 years of the Haters, right?
46.
46, exactly. Yeah, 45 was last year.
I'm just too stubborn to stop. I'm just too stubborn to stop.
I remember seeing it online when it was happening in New York, but I've been seeing it come up on people's best year lists of best performances they saw this year was Haters at TVI in New York.
It was a great performance. Actually, maybe one of my favorite shows that I've done in New York. It was a great audience, very responsive. Got to perform with John Reese and Crank Sturgeon, and it was a great lineup. It was great fun. It was just fun, and it was only the second time I've ever done an encore.
Really? Okay, yeah, because this CD the CD just came out also on Tronics and Helicopter with the recording of it and a second recording, the encore, which is like, I don't know, almost as long.
They
ripping up there for a while.
They wouldn't let us stop. The only other time I ever did an encore is in Tokyo in 1999. And again, the audience, very responsive, very passionate, wouldn't let us get off the stage. I was forced into it. And yeah, TVI, it was a great crowd. They're very responsive. Everyone was having a great time. I like to keep things brief, kind of to the point. But they wanted a second point, so what was I to do there? I was trapped on stage.
What was the nature of this performance? You have many different kind of pieces that you do.
Well, yeah,
this was something different, or was it something new, or?
No, it was something I started doing. Was it for the 40th anniversary? Called Digging Through Time. I had these oversized clocks, and I was scraping an amplified shovel onto this oversized clock face and just called it Digging Through Time. It seemed like an appropriate theme for an anniversary show. I got to do it in the Bay Area and then in Denver and maybe LA, but I never got to do it in New York. And so this seemed like a good opportunity to catch up.
You mentioned you were playing with Crank Sturgeon and Weiss, and as we know, Haters are often a big cast of co-collaborators when you're on stage. Who are some of your favorite Haters to perform with?
Let me think for a sec. Well, both John and Crank are great. I've collaborated with them on stage a number of times. Oh, that might be it. Paul Dickerson, who some of your viewers will know from the We Never Sleep label. We've performed together many times. Mike of Condom. Mike and I have performed at least a good dozen times together as the Haters.
Wow.
Yeah.
In the UK exclusively?
In the UK, yeah, mostly the UK. I think in France too, though.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are others, but my mind's a blank
Yeah,
right.
sure.
But those are like the top hitters for sure.
The condom connection is very interesting. I mean, first I have to say there are two fantastic episodes on Noise Extra where you appeared and talked about. First was, I think, the infamous episode of Merzcast, and then another episode of Noise Extra talking about Windlick Dirt. But I can highly recommend anyone out there listening or watching to check those out as well if they haven't already, because they're very.
And there was a third one to deal with Angelise.
Okay. I missed that one. I'm sorry. But so there are three out there, and they're very comprehensive, and you have so many great stories and anecdotes. For people who want to, background in the haters, those are also really, really great, fantastic resources. But the condom connection, we can talk maybe about that later. But that's a very interesting, collaborator, I think, in terms of where you come from and your typical type of collaborators, and Condom, what he's usually associated with, power electronics. I think early on realizing this collaboration existed in this, kind of like closeness existed between you guys. It somehow gave me a different appreciation and depth to both those projects, that the people behind them. Like there's much more, I don't know, ambiguity maybe to that whole package than perhaps people know.
I met Mike in Bordeaux for the DM Square Festival. I think that was in '89, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, we just got to chatting, and I think it was an emotional connection. We just really hit it off as a couple dudes just hanging out in the south of France making noise. He invited me to come visit him in England. And I said, well, are you sure? And he goes, yeah. I go, all right. And so we hung out in England quite a bit for a few years there, off and on, where to even begin? So, I had a very broad repertoire of events and installations that I could do. And he was the one who originally suggested to me that I should publish some kind of catalog or list of things that I do live, so people would have an idea of how to book me.
Oh, was that the reason to do it?
Yes, absolutely. He said, because I didn't bother. It was just before I did my 100th performance, and he goes, people have no idea like what you do on stage and how different it can be. And so he said it would be easier for him to book me in different venues if he had something to present to them, so they'd get an idea of, because some venues wanted something over the top, others wanted something a little more academic, some wanted something more conceptual, depending on the nature of the venue. So it was his idea for me to do a performanceography, do a performance list. And it used to be just like a two-sided sheet originally, just very brief descriptions of some of the highlights. And he found that really useful. He booked me in all kinds of shows all up and down England. And so at the time, because I travel lightly, he and I would be the haters. And yeah, he put so much energy into it. It was great. It really was. He invited me once to produce an album, or at least to do the final mix. He didn't like it at all. He had to go back in and remix it because I had this tendency of pushing down the vocals and make it more even with all the other sounds. So it'd be like a real wall of sound with a voice somewhere in there. But he wanted the voice to stand out, like very typical power electronics. So we had to giggle over that. But he took me to some great Indian restaurants.
I believe it.
You want really good Indian food, you go to England.
Right.
It's just amazing how this stuff. So anyway, so Mike and I, we hung out quite a bit actually in the the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s. He came stateside a couple times, and we went on tour together once with Anne. That was a great deal of fun. But yeah, it was just a personal thing. It wasn't necessarily ideology or aesthetics. We just liked each other, and that's kind of what's the basis of it.
Are you in touch with him these days?
Not as much as I'd like to. It's been a few years since the last time I heard from him. I know he's had health issues, and he's had, an evolution of priorities, personal issues, what have you. I don't want to sound over dramatic,
Of
but
course.
he's just gone in other directions, and I hear from him occasionally, once in a while, but not for the last couple years. I hope he's doing well.
Absolutely. So we just saw Jessica, and one thing I'd like to talk to you about a little bit before we kind of dig more into history and things like that is something you're doing currently, which is a 5-minute hour. Can you tell me about that?
So let's see how to describe it. We originally described it as a variety show. It was going to be a variety show. And originally, we were going to invite people to submit contributions, little video clips. And it would be a 5-minute montage of video clips. And that kind of evolved out of necessity from one thing to another. We ended up developing themes for episodes, and then just kind of, I don't know what you would call it right now. It's very anti-algorithm. That's just our blanket term for everything we do on that channel. Is because every week it'll be something a little different. A lot of it is slice of life, like what Jessica and I are up to. She's showing off her current doll creations, her doll projects. We'll go around town. We went to the original Adam West Bat Cave. We went to the abandoned part of the LA Zoo. We just wander around town, basically, kind of show off some of the ruins that we like. When people come to town, we'll include clips of their performances. Occasionally we get to interview someone, but it's a little bit of everything. It's like a real old school, old time TV variety show. It's Ed Sullivan, but condensed down to 5 minutes. And a lot of mail art, a lot of noise, some poetry, zine culture, just video art, just, people goofing on the camera. And
Do you see it as all related to kind of like a modern answer to mail art?
Yeah, I had this channel some years ago called Today's Mail, and every day I would show off what bit of mail that I got. And I do. I find that project and 5-minute hour as an extension of mail art. A few other mail artists have actually kind of gone on to the idea of utilizing YouTube to promote or share their mail art projects. And I think it's a natural evolution. I really do. I mean, actually, in kind of like the not so much, late 70s, early 80s, there was a real blend between cassette culture, what's now considered cassette culture, but back then it was just mail art. Like, really, cassette culture was a term that evolved years after the fact. While we were doing cassette culture, it was just part of our mail art activity. A lot of mail artists who had little to no interest in noise, or music for that matter, would share cassettes of one thing or another, usually poetry or field recordings of something, whatever.
I mean, you mentioned the algorithm and things like that. Do you think there is an answer to the spirit and ethics, maybe artistic ethics of mail art and underground culture in like that type of underground culture in today's internet landscape?
How so?
I mean, I don't know. That was so built on kind of an independent communication using this platform, the mail.
Yeah,
and a lot of free things came from it, right? But now we have this other platform now, which is very powerful and complex. I'm wondering, do you think that same type of communication is still happening there, or is it different?
It's a little different. There are more parameters you've got to work around. Like in mail art back in the 70s and 80s, whatever you could fit in a package that the post office would accept. Um, I had people put stamps on very odd objects, and the post office would still deliver it. Um, in many ways, I find that communication back then was way more honest than what we see now. Censorship of one kind or another is very sneaky these days. You have to be actually way more creative, and you probably get to express a lot less. So it's a struggle. It's more of a struggle than it used to be. But it's still possible. You just have to be really clever and really sneaky.
Haters have existed since 1979. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of the origin story of not just the haters, but GX, Jupiter-Larsen, as we know him?
Oh, God.
I mean, GX is more than just a guy. You are kind of you're a figure that I think represents more. And at some point, you were probably just a little guy or something like that. Where did you grow up? What brought you to starting the Haters in 1979? What happened before then?
Huge questions.
I know. I know. Say as little or as much as you'd like.
So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, on an isolated farm. So I was pretty much just there by myself until I started school. But my father was very much a union activist. And his union was on strike quite often because they were very militant and they wanted everything their own way. And most of the time they got everything their own way. It was the United Fishermen and Allied Workers Union. He was a dock worker. And so the very first time I actually met another child, because I was an only child, didn't have much of an extended family. The first time I actually even met another child was on the picket line. And so to me, as a 4, 5, 6-year-old, I loved going on the picket line with my dad, because I got to play with other kids. It was a real family affair. And despite the headlines in the newspapers at the time, most picket lines were family affairs where, parents would have to bring their kids and because they wanted that strike pay because, they weren't working. And so, they couldn't afford a babysitter, or the babysitter was on strike too. So you brought the kids, and the kids would occupy themselves. So that sense of festivity, that sense of celebration, but defiance of authority mixed in. And even as a child, you still understood on some level, you understood what was going on. Even though you couldn't articulate it in any way. But I think that was a huge influence on me in the long term. Otherwise, I was an awful student, didn't learn jack shit on anything, on any topic, for the longest time.
And now you're a mathematician.
Yeah, well, so I had this 4th grade teacher, and she gave me some mathematical problem, and I said, I don't need to know these numbers. And she says, what, you're going to invent your own number? You can't do that. And I said, defiantly, I don't know. Yes, I can. And like 20 years later, I did. So there you have it. I don't know. I showed her. And there was always like a sense of defiance, a sense of reinventing your own, taking everything and making it your own, making sense of the world through your own language. So you have to be able to translate that so other people can maybe understand what the hell you're going on about. And that's an ongoing struggle. Let's say I ended up going to art school. Between art school and grade school, I was very politically active. involved in a lot of Trotskyist kind of groups, League for Socialist Action, Young Socialist, stuff like that. And I almost always got kicked out of these groups for being just too damn weird and open-minded and willing to compromise with the opposition, stuff like that. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. I ended up going to art school. My debating teacher in high school was very disappointed. He expected me to hold public office, but
Wow.
yeah, I was really good in the debating club in high school. Anyway, but I ended up going to art school. Don't ask me how that happened. I really don't even remember. I guess I thought it was an easy cop-out. I got a scholarship, so I had to go somewhere. And they're the only guys that would accept me. But also, too, I ended up going to the Vancouver School of Art because they had the best animation department. This is back in the very late 70s. This is before MTV took off and adult animation, way before that. So you're either going to make an art film or you're going to work, I don't know, for Hanna-Barbera, both kind of depressing. But I was really into animation, so I went to that institution because they had the best animation department and dropped out very quickly. Punk rock was happening, so I was kind of involved in that as an audience member initially. A few failed attempts at starting a punk band. I guess the story goes that, I never really wanted to learn how to play an instrument. To me, I listened to the Sex Pistols. It didn't sound to me like they knew how to play their instruments. I know better now, but back then. So yeah, a lot of the bands that I tried to join thought I was holding them back because I actually refused to learn how to play anything.
Did you ever try to bring in some alternative instruments or styles of playing? Like,
no, you can't.
Did you ever try that?
Yeah,
No.
constantly, yeah, but no, that wasn't going to happen. So what happened? I ended up in New York. I don't know how I ended up there. I guess I was curious. It was a real happening place in the late 70s, 79 in particular. From some kid from the Pacific Northwest finding himself in the middle of Manhattan. It was a shocker. It was like Times Square. Times Square was not what it is now. Times Square back then was a freak show, even on a good day.
Yeah.
In both good and bad connotations. But it was fun. It was liberating. It inspired me. I thought, well, why learn to play an instrument? Why isn't the feedback enough? Punk was still a thing, and I was still relating to the punk world. I was never really into music before or since, but the energy, it reminded me of the picket lines, and that's what I think inspired me initially. And New York, yeah, it was crazy. I forget what street I was walking down, but I specifically remember accidentally walking alongside these two TV executives, and I was overhearing their conversation. They were talking about Bill Crosby, of all people. And they were at the time, Bill still had a great reputation for being a family man and, good guy. And they couldn't help but talk among themselves very loudly about what an asshole he was and how hard he was to deal with. And I don't know. It was on that same casual walk, overhearing that and other conversations. The name The Haters kind of popped in my head. And I thought, I got to do something with that. That's the most negative name I could come up with. I think that's one reason why I hadn't started my own band, was because I couldn't think of anything more repulsive than the Dead Kennedys, which was a name already taken.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jello. And and I thought, well, okay, Haters, that's a disgusting name. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
We can make it mean anything we want. Because actually, it was a really obscure word at the time. It's overused now like crazy.
Right.
Back then, no one ever used that term. It was an archaic term that hadn't been used since the Victorian age. And a lot of people thought I misspelled hatters.
Huh? Interesting.
Yeah, and so that was funny, but I went with it because it was both disgusting and meaningless, and well, it still is actually in many ways.
It's a great name for a band like yours, especially because I don't find haters to be hateful at all.
The contradiction is very deliberate.
Yes. Was it like that in the beginning as well?
Yeah, it was. I've had to kick people out of the group because they wanted to make it extra negative. There's this character, Herr Bevick. He was a casket salesman at a funeral home. Great vocalist. He was a lot of fun, but every time I gave him an idea or a theme to work with, he always wanted to twist it and make it negative. I said, no, that's not the joke. The joke is that the band has this harsh name, but it's actually really positive. He didn't get it. And I mean, a lot of people still don't really get it, but those that do, like Mike of Condom, he got it right away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So with 1979 being when the project officially started, I looked on your website. You list the first release in the discography as being the self-titled 7-inch, I believe, that came out in 1983.
Yeah, there were a couple compilations before then, a couple releases that I am not particularly happy and won't admit to ever doing. But the self-titled Complete This Record by Scratching It, it's a silent disc. It has grooves, but it's silent. And it comes with instructions that blatantly say you have to complete this record yourself. It made the listener a performer. My first release on any medium that I thought, okay, this is how I sound. This is my sound. This is the direction I want to go. At the time, people said, "Oh, the funny joke," but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't actually put it to vinyl. I'd just talk about. No, it had to be a thing. And the releases that come before that, they were attempts at trying to find my voice, my sound, and as far as I'm concerned, they were failures. But this was the true beginning. This is like, okay, this is where I should have started. Actually, where I should have started was doing my rendition of old labor protest songs, trade union protest songs, which I got to do many, many decades later on the Solidarity compilation on Band Productions. That's probably where I should have started, and then got into completing a silent record by scratching it. But I'm very scatterbrained.
In the interview or in the episode of Noise Extra, I think the one about the Merzbow album, you talk about how you appreciate artists when they haven't found their sound or their voice yet, and that sometimes you find that more interesting than once they've kind of locked in.
Quite more often than not. Not always, but more often than not. Because they're still experimenting. They still have a very broad vocabulary. And what can happen is that the artist he becomes a one-trick pony. And because the one trick really worked really well, so he just focuses on that and he stops evolving. You could all learn a little something from P.J. Harvey, a name stuck out of nowhere. But the great thing about P.J. is that what she does now is nothing like what she did 20 years ago. She constantly evolved. And not that, who else evolved? Well, Angelise always evolved. She never stayed static. And there are lots of other artists. Craig Sturgeon, John, AMK. There's a lot of people that continue to evolve. The trouble with Miss Sammy is that I don't want to say ill of the man, but he's not the boy I first met back in the 70s. He not as adventurous. I hate to say this. In his own way, he's a great guy, but in his younger days, he was so adventurous, more so than the rest of us. I think that's why I can't help but see the project as a downfall, because he had such a broad vocabulary. Who's so adventurous, out to try all kinds of new and different things, would try new and different things, explore, experiment. And then that kind of faded to his one thing, which is mostly volume. I mean, he does it better than anyone else, admittedly. Don't get me wrong. I still respect the man very deeply as an artist, but I think his early work, his pre-1990, so late 70s, I think he's 78, 79 as well, up to 90, 91. A very dynamic, broad range of a discography. Fascinating. Some of it's very fascinating.
Have you guys been in contact since that kind of rift falling out after that episode, or?
My goodness,
Or what's the status of your relationship at this point? Because you guys have worked a lot throughout the years, and you guys are very, very close. Clearly.
Yeah, we were very close, and he's written me out of his life. I embarrassed him one too many times.
Were there any art movements or particular philosophers or artists that were inspiring you at the early time? I have a question from someone from Patreon. I do like to ask the people who support the show if they have questions for my guests ahead of time, and I have actually quite a few that I'll pepper in here. But okay. one person asked, if you were particularly see yourself as linked to any sort of art movement, either in those early days or now.
Well, okay, Duchamp. There's no way anyone who's creatively involved in anything cannot acknowledge his influence. In high school and art school, Dadaism. All those guys, Tristan Tzara, Man Ray, Hans Richter, but Duchamp, that's like the absolute pinnacle. That's what you strive. You strive to be as he was. He had such a broad vocabulary. He saw everything so deeply and made a joke about the whole thing. I mean, when I went to Philadelphia the first time, I went to the museum there to see the Duchamp collection. And I dropped to my knees when I saw the large glass in real life. No photo, no video does it justice. You have no idea the depth, the physical depth that you experience. Never mind the aesthetic depth, but physically the layers and layers of dust and dirt and the epoxy and the material that was used to hold it together and the way the glass is broken and the way it was reassembled. It has a dramatic impact when you see it in real life. I have many, many books on the topic, but nothing prepared me when I saw it in real life. That was back in 91. And then Anton Denet, the little peep show that he did. It's just weird when you actually, again, no illustration does it justice. You have to walk up to the doors, stick your eye against the hole, and see the world that exists on the other side. And again, deeply moving, just amazing, amazing work. But it's mostly his writing. I have a collection of his correspondence, and the way he thought, his conclusions, the process to his conclusions, just absolutely fascinating. I don't know if there was ever anyone who thought like that before or since, but I find it absolutely fascinating, and it still inspires me to this day. Nietzsche, of course, we all have to acknowledge Nietzsche, maybe the most misquoted philosopher ever. But nevertheless, he made some brilliant points, and his defiance of the world around him is inspiring.
Entropy is a big word when you think of the haters. What does entropy mean to you in the most basic terms? And why is it so important to you?
Because everything is entropic. We owe everything to entropy. So this element, this force of nature that both gives and takes away life. It's constantly recycling, reprocessing, remixing existence. And nothing is stable. Nothing is permanent. Everything falls apart, but then gets reassembled and falls apart again. It's just the nature of existence, the nature of reality. And you can either resent it or just accept it, or you can do both. I guess in many ways, I both accept and resent it, but there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of dimensions. There's a lot of opportunity that I like to celebrate.
Do you know when you identified that as a important topic for you and your artwork?
Almost from the beginning. Certainly since the being able to verbalize it, though, probably not till the early 80s, mid 80s, and then by the 90s, I think it had been firmly established in my own head as to exactly what I was obsessed with.
One patron asked, does the concept of entropy carry any sort of spiritual connotation for you?
But every connotation, physical, political, spiritual, whatever. Yeah, I mean, again, it's an element that both gives and takes away life in even amounts. There is no favoritism to entropy. We are all equal in decay. And I find, did I achieve peace of mind? I don't know if I've ever had peace of mind or ever will, but I can deal with it. So whatever I have, it's fine. It's the reality we exist in this dimension and this universe. So got to make the most of it.
You mentioned in this Noise Extra episode about Winlick dirt, you said at some point I was obsessed with dirt, and I'm not sure why. But I want to ask you if, there are so many symbols that reappear throughout your work. Do you have an idea of what certain things mean to you? What does the funnel mean to you?
What does the funnel? That's an interesting, I don't think anyone's ever asked that before.
When I see that image of a funnel hanging from something massive, it's so bizarre and, poetic. It's poetic. It has such a insane logic to it that it's just pure poetry. But I want to know where it comes from you, if you can.
Oh, well, so trying to reinvent the phonograph record, reinvent the speaker, the analog speaker. I thought at least symbolically, visually, because the funnel is dragging on rotating sandpaper. And so it was an attempt to reinvent the concept of an analog speaker, that you'd be listening to the erosion through the funnel. Hanging the funnel on large objects, and every time I did the performance, it hung on something larger than the thing before. Yeah. That was a theatrical device. That came later, but initially it was a way of acknowledging analog sound and the analog process of erosion. Theatrically, I wanted to keep it interesting visually, so we kept hanging it off of larger and larger items each time we did the piece. But after you hang it from a truck, I guess an airplane. Someone actually tried to rent an airplane so I could do it, hanging the funnel from a plane, but that never came.
Here we have your ruler.
The ruler.
The famous ruler with a funnel as a unit of measurement. What about the wrestling mask? I understand where it might be influenced from, but does it mean something to you when you put it on?
So that's a little complicated of an answer. So Basically, when I started, the whole concept of cultural terrorism, that used to be a term that got thrown around, meant different things to different people. But I wanted, knowing that the haters would have a revolving lineup, I still nevertheless wanted the group to have a uniformed appearance. So I made everyone wear what I thought at the time was a terrorist mask, a terrorist hood. And we'd all appear and do our cultural terrorism. And over time, I don't know, 10 or plus years, I decided that really I should pay tribute to my aesthetic roots as a young boy, which was professional wrestling. And we started wearing wrestling masks, wrestling hoods instead. And but again, keeping the same mask for different members, so we'd all again look more or less the same. But over time, people realized what we actually looked like. People got used to the idea that it was ever-changing lineup, and that wasn't a big deal anymore. That wasn't distracting anymore. So at one point, I had this beautiful leather mask that was custom made for me by a dear friend, Paul Stoll. He runs body manipulations in San Francisco. He used to do a lot of leather work. And but anyway, my fat head got too big, and I just stopped wearing. I mean, that's literally why I stopped wearing it, because it wouldn't fit.
At what point did you realize that you were creating this entire kind of language and universe? Was that something that you set out to do in the beginning?
Not really.
There's this whole hit. I mean, I have books here of your your fiction, and you have these mathematical systems, and there are things that come up again and again and again. You've done these performances in different iterations over the years, and they contain elements of each other.
You know what this is about? I'll tell you. Doing it for 46 years, it's just bound to happen. Unless you become a one-trick pony. But if you're evolving, you're trying different things, that includes doing different combinations of the same thing, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's just an accidental byproduct. What you're describing is just like, well, that's what happens when you keep being creative for so long. It happens to all of us, anyone. You have to start somewhere. So you start at zero, and then you work your way up from that. And pretty soon you got a billion items in your head, and you got to do something with them.
Can you tell anything about your personal practices in daily life for how you create work, or how you interact with your work or think about it? I know that's too vague of a question, but
yeah, it is, because I'm a very obsessive person, and when opportunities come my way, I take advantage of it. If there's a door, I've got to walk through it. If someone offers me a completely insane, stupid thing to do, I got to follow through. Even if it's something smart and intelligent, I'll do that too.
Yeah, sure.
I'm still waiting to get shot out of a cannon. No one's taken me up on that, but yeah.
Would you still do that?
I would still do that. Yeah, if the opportunity, if I trusted the people, yeah, I would totally do it. Well, maybe even if I didn't trust the people, I'd still try it.
What if it meant potentially ending? I mean, what if it meant potential real disaster and danger?
Well, so my smart aleck answer is, you take your life in your hand crossing the street. And that's true. But, of course, I would have to make sure that proper safety precautions were taken, which is something I learned to do the hard way. But, I used to do suspensions from hooks placed through my back. And I trusted the people who were inserting the hooks. I trusted the people who hoisted me up. And it was a very moving, a deeply moving experience. And I was much the better person for it. There are situations that I would put myself in where I was physically very uncomfortable. But the process of beginning, middle, and end made it worthwhile. I learned something about myself. I learned something about the people I experienced it with. You have to push yourself sometimes to try things you normally wouldn't. And it's usually quite rewarding, at least for myself.
Jump back to your recordings. For me, In the Shade of Fire is a really iconic Haters release, but that's quite early in your catalog, 1986. It's described in your original discography description as 10 noise compositions made from the sounds of things falling apart. Are these pieces on there anything related to the more established pieces, performances that you became known for? For example, Clicky Click. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, or anything like that. Are we hearing?
That predates Clicky Clicking. Predates the In the Shade of Fire by a good 10 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So In the Shade, yeah. So at the time, this is during the 80s, and I'm doing a lot of large-scale performances in which we're tearing stuff apart, usually including the stage. And there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of entropy happening. There's mostly sound was a secondary item. Actually, I only use sound, pre-recorded sound, as a timing mechanism. So when the tape started, that's when the performance started. When the tape ended, well, that's the end. You stop, you take a bow, and you get away before the police show up. And but it had to do like breaking things, literally tearing paper, smashing glass, cutting woods, just smashing objects. And because, this, in part, it was a reaction to all my little punk rock friends that would sing about destroying stuff. But to me, well, let's just destroy. Why sing about it? Let's just destroy stuff because it's fun. And it actually does sound interesting if you stop to actually listen to it. So all through the 80s into the early 90s, very early 90s, that was the nature of the performance. So a release like In the Shade of Fire isn't a live recording. It's like a studio reimagining of what happened on stage. At the point I did In the Shade of Fire, I saw releases like records and cassettes as something completely separate from performing. I didn't see the two as being related at all. They didn't need to be. I saw them as two different opportunities to do two completely different things. The live recordings, the live albums came much later, when I thought they were interesting enough or had potential of being interesting enough. Sound became increasingly more important starting in the early 90s, where I got to where a colleague of mine from Survival Research Laboratories, he recognized my interest in entropy, and he said, yeah, but if you talk about entropy, but all you have to do, if you're really interested, this is what he said, if you're really interested, why don't you just record a grinding wheel? And I go, where were you 20 years ago? So, and that's what actually got me interested, that conversation with Brian at SRL. That's what got me actually interested in live sound, the potential of live sound, and how it started to overlap both the studio recordings and the live stage productions.
What were some of the first performances that you did that really melded those together? The concept and the performance and projecting it through sound.
Yeah, so really, I have to say the Clicky Click, which is amplified hole punch. So so that really, I think, merged the action and the sound, and that the sound was interesting enough by itself that you didn't necessarily need to see it created, but it did help. But then things really took off when I started doing what I called the grinding gig, which is to shove a microphone into a power grinder. The initial attempts were like, kind of mixed results, but it got better. And as I got more used to the idea of live sound and being able to manipulate live sound and have it part of the action and vice versa, it got really good during the 90s in particular. I thought we did a lot of different variations of that. Building empty holes usually dealt with amplifying a power drill and drilling stuff down to sawdust, but amplifying the drill in the process. Stuff like that. Anyhow, yeah, so that's where that started.
How much importance and craft went into the processing of the sound? Or was it kind of just like the concept is here, the idea is here, the image is here, the sound it makes will be enough. The sound it should be?
Yeah, and I would say for maybe the first 10 or 12 years, that was the case. That was the aesthetic. That was the process. So what happened? So at the end of the 90s, MSBR and K2 came to California. It was part of a national tour. And I had known both these guys. We'd been in touch by correspondence, but this is the first time I'm meeting them face to face. And I felt pressure. So I'm the opening act to MSBR and K2. Oh my God, the stress was blowing my brains out of my skull. I felt the pressure. I did. I didn't want to let these guys down, and I didn't want to look like some amateur, I didn't want to look like or sound like some amateur. I wanted some, I wanted to at least, I don't know, be on the same plateau. I don't know if that would be possible, but I at least wanted to give it the good college try.
Yeah.
So, Joe Crawley, you may know as Crawley.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely man. He and I used to be in touch quite a bit back then, and he was at the time a collector of pedals, and he was showing off some of these recent pedals that he had collected. And I'm going, pedals up to that point never really meant that much to me. And oh yeah, that's cute, whatever.
Yeah.
Then he showed me this one item called Meatbox, originally manufactured by DOD. And he showed me what it did. And I said, finally, something I can relate to, something that means something to me. Now, admittedly, you need a good PA to take advantage of the Meatbox, right? If you got like some little dinky guitar amp, it's not going to do anything.
Right.
I mean, nothing at all.
Right.
And it's why the pedal never did that well commercially, because most kids didn't have a PA system big enough to take advantage. But I knew the promoter was getting a really big PA system for K2 and MSBR.
Sure.
And going, oh, hold on. So I overcompensated to some degree. The video is on YouTube. It's on Instagram. It's where this one woman is tied to my back and her two girlfriends cut her dress off with amplified scissors. I'm overcompensating. I am. I felt so like, I tell you, these opening for these two guys, oh my God, let's get all my
bring all the big guns.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It's like, wow, forget it. And I got the Meatbox. It was the first pedal that I really used, that really, anyway, so subharmonics like crazy, like you could feel it in your gut. That was a great thing. You could actually feel it. Didn't really affect the sound, but you got this extra layer that penetrated your gut. And that was the great thing. If you had a big enough PA, it was just magic. So I've used the Meat Box almost every performance since.
Still to this day.
Still to this day, yeah. Yeah, it's still holding together with duct tape, but it still works.
Here's something from Jonathan Cash. He has a little anecdote here, and then a question.
Okay.
For a little context, when I booked GX on my first ever fest, I was really amazed at how he pretty much sat down and watched every single set from open to close. I expected a jaded sense of disinterest from someone who's obviously seen a lot of live experimental performances in his time, so I was very stoked by how engaged he seemed to be with everything. So my question is a basic but crucial one. What are some of his favorite performers and specific performances he's ever seen?
Hey, John, how's it going? Let's see. I will say that, I don't know, maybe I've become more jaded since he first booked me. Because I had this point after 40 years, I've seen too much.
Yeah.
But I always appreciated in the noise scene. The noise scene has reinvented itself. Ron Lassard used to say every 12 years it's a different scene. And that's kind of true. Maybe 12, 14 years it becomes a complete. But the one thing that's consistent from the 80s to now is the level of sincerity that I really respect. And I'm sometimes often I'm pleasantly surprised by the quality and the depth that people approach their work in the noise scene. So some of my favorite noise, I mean, I have to include Survival Research Laboratory, and every time I saw them live and participated in their live shows, that's a whole nother level. That's a whole nother genre, but I have to include that. So Smell and Quim, in Paris in 95, those guys were just hysterical. Yeah, they were dressed up. I guess they were supposed to be dressed up as Elvis, but I interpreted it as Honky Tonk Man. And but their sense of humor, and again, they knew no boundaries, be it social or personal, as far as what they were doing. Just hysterically funny, really, just so hysterically funny and extreme and loud, but joyous. Yeah, there wasn't any anger. They were being too silly. Later on, they would dress up like robots. Really badly made cardboard.
I've seen photos, I think, as well. I've seen Elvis photos. And I've seen cardboard robot photos.
I tell you, their sense of style is unbeatable. Every time I saw Angelise perform, she was doing this piece. The times that I got to see her perform, her obsession with being a mother or giving birth was getting stronger and stronger. And the work reflected that. So she was incorporating cliched kind of baby sounds, toy sounds. And she was doing it in a really clever way. She would lay on the floor of the stage. She'd lay on the stage and spread her legs. And out from under her dress, she would pull out analog tape, reel-to-reel tape. And as she tugged the tape out from under her dress, you would hear what you would expect to hear of sounds. And as you run tape over the tape head, right, so you get this stretching of analog sound. And it sounded like baby sounds. It wasn't, but it sounded like it. It was brilliant performance because both visually and acoustically, audio-wise, it blended the sound and the action so perfect, so amazing.
Awesome.
Radio Song, Scott Arford's project, in the 90s in San Francisco, he'd amplify cathode ray tubes. And he's moved on to other things since, but I really, really just Well, it's the static. It was kind of, there's some entropy in there. But
Hmm.
re-amplifying the static the way he did using video monitors and contact mics. Again, the sound and the visuals were married just perfectly. Every time I ever saw Damian Romero perform a
Hmm.
Speculum fight, especially
Yep.
in the days when he was Speculum fight,
Hmm. Hmm.
in the late 90s, he did this one piece in San Francisco, this one performance. And, there was no one else before or since who really explored the architecture of the sound wave.
Hmm.
I mean, almost to a scientific degree. And, I've heard some very loud performances and I've heard some very interesting frequencies. But his combination of volume and just the waveforms that he was able to generate, it affected your vision, never mind your hearing, but it
Sure.
actually affected your vision. And
Wow.
I wasn't the only one. Mostly it's those of us in the back of the venue. Those in front didn't seem to experience it, but the ones of us in the back, it changed the colors. Literally, it affected our vision. Everything seemed more I don't know. I think it was more red or more yellow. I can't remember now. I'd have to
Wow.
look it up. But everything was tinted more, and everyone had the same reaction. Everyone had the
Wow.
same physical reaction. And I've never experienced anything like that before or since. I mean, I've seen Damien perform a number of times, of course, since then. And he's generated some very, very interesting sounds. But none have, and you felt them in your gut too, but nothing like that where your eyeball changed shape. That
Crazy.
was pretty unique. That's maybe one of the best shows. Well, maybe the best show I ever saw, to tell you the truth, just because, it affected your vision, and I'm very visually oriented.
Yeah.
That's a hard act to follow, but
Yeah.
actually, I have to say there's two other shows that really affected me. One, well, K2. Okay, so K2 Live is something that's really amazing. This
Yeah.
guy has so much life in him. I
You
still
guys have
remember,
met each other recently, right? I mean, I've seen.
well, we've met each other many times,
Yes. Yes.
actually,
But
including recently, just before the pandemic hit.
right.
He came to LA for some medical convention. But that first time I saw him live is very memorable to me. But I've seen him perform a few times, but it's always fun. It doesn't matter what he's doing. He has such a joy in what he does that it's very infectious. And Finn, I don't know if you know Finn. What did he do? He amplified oil drums. He used oil drums as speakers. So, well, that's what he did, actually. He wasn't amplifying the drum initially. He was pumping a sound through the drum. So you would listen to the sound through the oil drum. So he was using the oil drum as an analog speaker. Not particularly loud, but fascinating. It was almost ghostly quality to the sounds that he was getting. Kind of a little bit like it was interesting because he kind of reminded me a little bit of Scott at Chop Shop. Chop Shop would build these speaker systems, very
Yeah.
elaborate
Yeah.
analog speaker systems, not using speakers at all. Not so much. They made these very sculptural pieces, and depending on the shape of the speaker would affect the sound. So these two kind of remind me a little bit of each other. Scott took it much further. Finn went on to do a bunch of different things.
As a pioneer, really, of what is now known as noise and as a genre of music, it's still going strong in 2025. How do you feel about it? Where it is right now? And you can be as honest as you want. I mean, I know.
I'm always honest. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to hold back.
Yeah.
No, listen, like what Ron had said many times long ago, the noise scene reinvents itself. So the best way I can describe that in the current context is that when I started doing noise, the sounds generated were a reflection of the person's obsessions. Noise was a very obsession-based genre. It was a way of either illustrating your obsession or exploring your obsession or expressing your obsession to one degree or another. Power electronics was different, but noise specifically was much more literal. You know, if you were into bird sounds, that's the sounds you used were birds. Maybe you distorted them, maybe not, though.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on your obsession. Nowadays, though, there was a time period where I think volume became more important than sound, and that wasn't particularly interesting to me personally. But the current state of affairs is interesting because if there is a difference between music and noise, it's because in music, the composer is trying to create a composition you've never heard before. But in noise, the composition is irrelevant. What's important is the sound, and people are trying to generate sounds that no one's ever heard before. And I find that fascinating. Do they succeed? Well, depends how young you are. But but I think it's a fabulous challenge, and the fact that this seems to be either consciously or unconsciously the direction that the current scene is taking. And I find that interesting.
When you say recently or now, how recently are you talking of?
Last terms 5-10 years.
Okay. And what do you think that's a result of, or why do you think that it's going in this direction right now?
I have no idea. I'm just glad that it's going in that direction. Or so it seems from my vantage point, from where I'm standing. Yeah. That's the direction it seems to be taking. I might be wrong because most of the kids I hang out with are in their 40s. So the kids in their 20s and 30s, well, I don't know. Maybe they can let me know. Maybe they can contact me and tell me what the hell they're up to.
You still seem to be. Pretty involved, despite truly being someone who's seen it all and been around for a long time and doesn't need to be so involved. You still seem to be pretty involved and tapped in. Recently, did the 45 anniversary show. How does it feel to be doing a 45 anniversary show? And who was part of that show with you? And describe that a little bit for me.
Let me think. So there were a few friends coming through town. And they said, do you want to, open up for us? And I said, yeah, okay. And I hadn't thought about what I was going to do. So that's why it's unofficially the 45th anniversary, because that was just a coincidence. But I didn't want to go on stage by myself. So, I asked AMK and Eldon, do you want to join me? And, we can just jam. We can just improvise. And they said, yeah. And then John just happened to be there. And I said, well, okay, there's no way you're getting out of this. You're joining us on stage. And he didn't seem to put up much of a struggle. So it's just a bunch of friends making noise. I mean, literally, that's pretty much it. AMK was on his turntables. Eldon was doing something with his whatever gear he brought. He brought a lot of rusty chains that he was playing with. And I think I have this amplified transistor radio. And when I say amplify, I mean it doesn't work. It's dead. But it has a bunch of contact mics inside of it. So it doesn't take much effort to manipulate it and to get it to generate noise. I originally had modified this radio for this radio performance in Vienna a few decades back, but I've kept the thing because it doesn't take much effort to make a lot of noise with it. So, yeah, we were just goofing off. I mean, to be perfectly honest, we were just like enjoying each other's company. I think that's the best way to summarize that particular performance. And I think even the performance at TVI, it's just three friends hanging out, enjoying each other's company, and that's pretty much it, really.
Do you feel like that's where you're at right now with the project? That it's just, something to kind of just enjoy and be in communion with your friends and
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that sums it up pretty nicely. Any cultural or political aesthetic point I wanted to make has been made over and over again. I'm not one for repeating myself too often, but at this point in my life, at this stage of my life, yeah, it's how I stay connected with the people that matter to me.
what do you see as the future of the haters?
Oh,
I
I
mean,
don't.
a cannon. I
Being
mean,
shot out of a cannon, well,
a
that's just
cannon's
its
got to be
own.
one thing, and I mean,
Uh,
46 years is you got to keep. I mean, you got to keep going. You can't
this is
hang it up at some point and be like, oh, well, it's enough. You know, you've got to keep going, right?
well, it depends on what opportunities come my way. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it really does. I'm not super eager to get back on stage unless an interesting opportunity comes my way. If that takes a few years, so be it. But I'm not, Ron says that he quit performing because he ran out of ideas and
Hmm.
he's waiting till he comes up with a new idea. I know how, depending on when you reach a certain stage in your age, that's an easy fallback position. And you get bored and you don't necessarily see where you can take something to keep it interesting. And you might become a little lazy and keep waiting. I'm not like hopefully I'm not like that. I'm still willing to get on stage if I have a good enough excuse. If there's a good enough excuse, depending who's coming through town, depending what items may come to my availability as far as, props or circumstances or whatever. But I'm still up for it. I don't mind repeating myself occasionally. But as far as there's no deliberate anything pre-thought out yet as far as where I will take it next. It really does depend on the opportunities that may or may not come my way. I work a lot in video. I still do a lot of writing.
Yeah.
That I'm still working on my third feature film, which is taking 10 years longer than I thought it might. But that's something I attend to. The 5 Minute Hour variety show on YouTube is something that occupies a lot of time these days because I don't have a staff. It's basically Jessica and myself. And people still ask if I would write their liner notes or write an article for the Racine or website. I'm happy to oblige. Any excuse to write, it's fine. Um, and so that, but audio was always again, second place. There were other
Yeah.
things that were a higher priority. Cinema was always a far, far bigger influence on me than popular music. Radio, well, I used to do a lot of work in radio. That's not necessarily, any form of music per se, but yeah, I don't know. It like, and I still do radio occasionally. I still occasionally will do a program for Austrian National Radio through this program they call Kunstradio. If you
Right.
look
I
up
listened to that.
Radio, I've done a variety of shows for
I listened
them.
to one the other day that's the names of many of your
Friends about the Polywave.
yeah, exactly. I listened to that. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
fun because it's like I know or know of also most of those people, and I was like, and it's also in German. And, I'm living in, so I speak German, and I'm listening to them speaking German, and then it comes on Aaron Dillaway, Lasse Marhaug. It was great fun. I just let that play while
It was great fun. It was originally done as a installation piece at this gallery space in L.A. and it just translated so well to radio. I'm still collecting people saying their names in their own voices. So at some point, I hope to do an updated version. I have quite a few more names that I've collected, and it's like a roll call of people who, except for a couple. Mark Pauline, I couldn't get him to record his name no matter how hard I begged him. But he's always difficult. That's how you know he cares.
yeah. Is there anything you would tell, say, a Gen Z person or younger who is maybe discovering noise right now in Los Angeles, discovering haters, getting involved a little bit, starting their own project? Is there anything you would tell them as words of encouragement, advice, wisdom, things you would like to, impart on anyone?
Well, you have to. What's most important to you in terms of obsession or personal issue or whatever? There's got to be something that you're preoccupied with. That's your starting point. Be it how things are done or just the theme or subject matter. Doesn't matter. It's you have to, whatever you do, you have to make it your own. And you make it your own by understanding, exploring your obsession, whatever that happens to be. Maybe it's something you don't like. Maybe it's something you love. Doesn't matter. You explore it. The more you explore it, the more you'll understand it, and the more you'll be able to take control of it. And sometimes this happens in weeks, sometimes it happens in years, sometimes it happens in decades. But you get to enjoy the journey.
GX, I have, a handful of other questions here from... Oh, I have a fun question, okay? About the collaboration with the New Blockaders that came out on Psych Forum. How did that transpire? And then so one person asked this from the Patreon, and another person asked this question, are you the New Blockaders?
I wish. No, isn't that an So I know a lot of people think that Richard doesn't really exist, that the person behind the New Blockaders isn't a real person, and that's a running gag. Well, it might be a running gag, but there actually is a person who started the project and has been orchestrating the project ever since. He doesn't like to do anything, so he gets other people to perform. He gets other people to record his material, and then he takes credit for all of it. It's pretty much, I know pretty much for a fact that it's the same Richard I've been in touch with since the very early 80s, because we've never not been in touch with one another. And it's pretty much been the same mailing address or same email the whole time. So I'm pretty sure it's the same person. There is a lot of similarities between the two projects, but there's also a lot of differences. And so how did that happen?
Of course. I mean, between haters and New Blockaders, of course. But, it could be a...
Well, it could be a very elaborate rouge on my part, or his part. Maybe I'm Richard. Maybe I'm not GX.
Exactly.
So yeah, okay. So one of my favorite all-time releases was a collaboration between the New Blockaders and Organum, and that was the Pulp 7-inch.
Yep.
Great sound, great textures, great. Yeah. Anyway, it's really thick, dense sound. It's really great stuff. So Richard just at one point said, "Oh, we need to do something," and I couldn't think of an excuse to say no, so I said, "Sure." And we did that a few times. So we got like a couple CDs, a couple records, a couple splits.
The person was specifically
performed live. Not Richard wasn't there, but we performed live on stage together.
I think the guy was asking about this one. Do you remember this one?
Yes, I do. Wasn't particularly happy with the packaging, if I may be honest, but I'm very happy with the sound. And
Zero is the Journey.
Zero is the Journey, yeah. So how did that happen? He might have sent me some raw material to remix, and I think that's what happened. I think he thinks I had too much influence on it.
He thinks that?
More me than him.
Okay.
I think. I don't know. Maybe he was just in a bad mood that day. We all get there. But basically it was his idea, and I picked the theme. He sent me some source material to reimagine. That's how that came about. A lot of the fonts, the writing, the scribblings, I invented this language called Panelese and invented an alphabet to be able to express myself in Panelese. Yes, you can actually decipher it if you're clever enough. I've had
Is
a
that this
couple
here?
people. Yeah, yeah. If you open up the booklet is in Panelese.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I used to use that a lot more than I did after a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. I know. I know that.
I had the program at the time to design my own fonts, so I designed a Panelese font, which I no longer have, or one of the reasons why I don't bother using it as much. Not enough people were able to decipher it or translate it, so it kind of got boring after a while. But it was fun at the time.
Okay. I'm going to try.
I've known a couple people that got Panelese tattooed to their arms. And
Really?
They got me to write something in Panelese. I gave it to them, and then they had it tattooed. And I said, "No, don't worry. It's not insulting. It's very flattering." But neither of them were able to eventually decipher it.
Well, they don't even know themselves what it is.
I'll never tell. Where's the fun in that?
Yeah. I mean, it's like the Chinese symbols. You think it says wisdom or something like that, and it says, hockey puck or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's not. It's not like that. I would let you know if that's what it said.
Sure.
Any other questions from your Patreons?
This is a big question. Howard Stelzer wanted me to ask you about AMK. AMK and haters go hand in hand throughout history,
Yeah.
right? So I mean,
no,
there's
for sure. Yeah, no. We've been friends for a very long time, and I used to be very involved in his label, kind of as a curator. I helped design some of the packaging. AMK, let's just sum it up by saying, I can get him out on the stage once or twice a year, but he's dealing with health issues, and he's not really available
okay.
for comment. Let's just say that. But he is still alive, and he's coping as well as he can.
I have a question from Maggie. She wants to know more about your novels. Will we ever see Raw Zed republished? And what is your relationship with text these days?
Well, I love to write. I've written 4 novels, 3 of which have been published in their entirety, although, of course, I have rewritten all 4. Well, the 3 that were published, I've rewritten. I've expanded them greatly.
Yeah.
And I'd love to get all 4 published in their entirety. I have not met a publisher crazy enough to be involved in such a project. But if there's one out there, please contact me, because I haven't been able to find you yet.
How long are they each?
Oh, they're like a standard 18,000 to 24,000 words. Yeah, they're kind of standard short novels at this point. Very
Cool.
dense. They at this point kind of refer to each other. So I guess it's a common universe that they all share, but different planets.
Do you see text and writing and literature related to abstract sound, like the sound that you make with the haters?
It can.
How closely related do you think they are for you?
Well, so subject-wise, it depends on your obsession. If you obsessed with the sound of broken glass and that's all you write about, well, there's your relationship.
Yeah.
What I did for myself is that I wanted to express just the abstract concept of noise in literature. So I just started typing random letters. Then I realized that people were trying to pronounce these random letters because they had vowels in them. So I made sure nowadays, and I have for quite a while, deleted any vowels. So you cannot pronounce these things unless you redesignate certain consonants vowels, which is fine. If you want to do that, more power to you. But, and I had done whole books of just random letters as a way of describing noise. And certainly if you're unable to read, as most people are unable to read Panelese, it looks like noise to you. And that's just fine by me.
There are texts also here in the Totemorphous comic book I have here, for example. That's a very linear story. I mean, must be quite different than the novels that you're describing, right?
Yeah. It wasn't originally written for Colin as a comic book, but I just thought after I wrote it, since I couldn't get the MCU to buy into it. I thought, oh, I'll give it to Colin. He can make a comic book out of it. And I liked what he came up with. Yeah, it is a linear story. I just like the idea that an astronaut would land on a planet, and then every comic book character he ever knew as a kid happened to occupy this planet. And no,
Yeah.
they didn't like him. They didn't like him
Yeah.
at all. So I don't know. I just liked that idea, so I thought I'd do something with it.
GX, can you tell me your top 5 noise releases ever?
Yeah, I can. You want to know?
I do want to know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I wrote them down because I knew you were going to ask me that.
Yeah,
I wanted to
that's
make
good.
sure I didn't forget anyone.
That's good.
But well, I already mentioned Pulp, the Pulp 7-inch New Block Haters Organum. Anything by Organum, actually. Dave was quite a kooky character. I love that guy. Anything by Chop Shop, but in particular steel plate, the double 10-inch, wrapped around, well, a steel plate, quite literally. Yeah. Anyway, it's amazing packaging. But they're also great records. You got to listen to the type of sounds that generate through his speaker systems. And anyway, yeah, it's great. So Ultimate Embrace by MSBR. It might be the only LP he ever did. He did a bunch of tapes and CDs, CDRs maybe. But it's the only 12-inch I know of. I may be wrong though. But yeah, it's the first one he did, and it's really one of my favorites. White Elephant by Spectrum Fight. Originally a cassette, but get the CD. The sound quality is so much better. If you want to hear something you've never heard before, then that's the way to go. A lot of layers, just a lot of textures. But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Play. The CD by AMK, I think that was on the Pure series originally, maybe.
Yep.
K2, the Rust CD, again, lots of great textures. A Radical Positive by Black Humor, or Peace in Our Time, one or the other. They're kind of tied. The archival box set, the 5 CDs that cover, at the time, the complete discography of Angelis. So if you want to explore how someone can evolve their sound, how their sound can evolve and become something completely different from where they started, then it's the archival box released by Art into Life. Angelis. Anyway, it's a great set. It includes compilation tracks and singles, as well as her albums. I think it was recently re-released. Someone remixed it maybe, but either way, it'll give you a really good idea, like a roadmap of where you can start doing one place and then slowly move to something else far more magical. And if I'm going to include Small Crew Party, and I have to include Small Crew Party before the Dream EP, just a nice piece.
Excellent.
So there, you got 10.
That's 10. That's better than 5. Anything like new or current that you are interested in or find intriguing or impressed by that you've seen on stage or heard recently that you think is worth mentioning?
Tarantula Princess. Tarantula Princess is a project. I believe she's currently based in Sacramento. I find this young lady very interesting, in part because, well, I met her when she was still a child, originally at this Noise Festival in Oregon, Eugene Noise Fest. Well, way back, way. I don't even know how far back, but she was just a child, did a very impressive set. Now she's returned to noise, and what I've heard, I don't know if this represents everything that she does, but the few times I've seen video of her live performance, recent live performances, she incorporates voicemail recordings from her mother. She obviously has I don't want to project the kind of relationship she has with her mother, But I think you can imagine maybe. Anyway,
Sure.
it's fascinating. If it is her mother or not, it doesn't matter. The fact that that's the context that she presents these sounds, it comes off very sincere, even if it's not, but it comes off very sincere, very interesting, very personal. And I like work that's very personal.
Yeah. I mean, GX, you've created such a rich world for people to bask in and discover. There's so much to chew on. All I can say is much respect and love for what you've done and what you do. May you carry on doing whatever you like, whether it be this or something completely different, for as long as you feel like it. But we appreciate you there very, very much.
Well, thank you. And again, it is an honor to be here with you. I've caught most of your episodes, so maybe there's only been a few that I've missed, but
appreciate that. That means a lot.
Very much. Enjoyed them very much.
That means a very lot. Thank you for bearing with my questions and being so open. And is there anything else you'd like to add or let the people know before we sign off?
Thank you for listening. Do feel free to contact me. I'm on most social media platforms because I just don't know when to stop. So I'd love to hear from you if you want to chit-chat.
Great. These 2 discs are out now, which I think are worth mentioning. They're really good.
Thank you.
Recent performances and older ones, I love them. They sound great, as music albums, but they document these performances really well. So I can highly recommend people check them out.
New York, one's about L.A. So
exactly.
It's kind of an overview of each town.
Yeah, exactly.
2 cities that have been very important to me, both as homestead and performance platforms.
All right, GX, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.